Welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack series. My name is Martha.
And I'm Molly.
She's my sister.
You bet.
This lesson is part of Project Pack number 12, and it will help us celebrate our annual 12 Days of Zentangle.
Yay! I actually love, this is my favorite project packs every year.
It's a fun one.
So fun.
And this year's theme is Zentangle Renaissance.
Another favorite.
We'll be working with the materials that you will find in your Project Pack number 12 envelopes. Project packs are available from some of our certified Zentangle teachers and, of course, on zentangle.com. But if you don't have a project pack, we always encourage folks to follow along with these lessons with whatever materials that you might have at home.
We mean that. Get creative. Do whatever you can. Use what you got. We'll have fun.
It'll come out amazing,
yes,
I'm sure.
Totally. So we recommend watching the introduction to this series first, and that'll give you a little bit of background about the Zentangle Renaissance. But the rest of these project back videos can be viewed in any order, so have fun with them. Choose which ones you want to go through with, and maybe some that you want to revisit later, and that's fine too. Today we are going to be working on a phi tile, which I'm super pumped about. So the phi tile is included in the tiles in the project pack envelope.
This is our newest tile.
It is,
so
yeah.
It might be the first time some of you are working on it.
If you want to explore more phi tiles, our previous project pack 11 really goes into that. Inside the tools, we are using all these items from the tool envelope: the black micron, brown micron, the white jelly roll, 3 pencils, a white graphite and a brown pastel pencil.
So 3 tortillons as well.
And 3 tortillons for those pencils. So those items you want to have out. So let's get started. What do you think?
Yes,
Phi
ready.
tiles are a little bit bigger than your average tile, so it does take a little bit longer. And Renaissance tends to take a little bit longer because it's all about layers. So just be patient and take your time. It might take you a few sessions, tangling sessions, to get through these tiles, but enjoy it. Don't try to rush through them. You can rewatch the videos and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, don't get too caught up in the line you're drawing as well. It's like, this is a real process, and
Right.
every time we start something new, have faith in what you can do and all that's to come.
Exactly. So whenever I start tangling, I do like to go through that whole process of gratitude and appreciation. Maybe a few deep breaths, maybe a pause, maybe a gentle closing of the eyes. Whatever it is that you need to do to begin your practice, I always recommend that little moment for yourself. So once you have your tile and your pencils and tools all ready to go, we are going to be working on this beautiful phi tile, and I am going to put down a really, really simple string. And what I'm going to do is I want to create kind of a big oval right here, and I'm going to explain why. I'm kind of working in this upper right-hand corner here, but my oval's going to kind of fall off the page because I'm kind of play with this going off the page here. So just really kind of creating a big oval that kind of falls off the page like that. And it can be a little wonky. It doesn't have to be perfect because, well, of course, it just doesn't have to be perfect. And we really want to play around with it, kind of the composition falling off the tile. It's kind of going to be what we're shooting off here. It'll be fun. This first tangle portion of our tangle that I'm going to be playing with is actually sort of a hybrid, and I'm sort of combining 2 tangles, and the 2 tangles are perk and what's the other one we're playing with, Martha?
Oh,
festoon.
Yes.
And you might think these are kind of funny 2 funny tangles to play around with. You can sort of do a little research to see what those tangles look like isolated if you've never seen them, but if not, you're going to get a window into what they look like together.
It's kind of a fun idea to think that you can probably mix any 2 tangles together, right?
The challenge, right?
Challenge.
Total challenge. Play that with your legend, right? So festoon is this beautiful tangle where you take these sort of orbs or ovals and you put like a center point in them, and then you create these sort of radiating lines. And we're going to create a big festoon and use it as a reticula. These are like big Zentangle words here. So what I'd like to do is find a center point that's a little off center actually to create a little bit of sort of a more dynamic look. So I'm going to take this oval and then I'm with my actually brown pen I'm working with first. You can see what color it is here. Working with my brown pen first. And I'm going to just locate sort of this little off-center spot towards the bottom, and I'm going to put a little kind of mark there. And now I'm going to start creating a series of radiating lines, but I'm going to add a little bit of character to them so you can kind of see what I'm thinking here. You can watch along for a little bit first, and then when you get the idea, you can follow along. So I'm going to create a series of these radiating lines. And as I get towards the top here, they're not arcing as much. In fact, I'm going to start to arc it in the other direction, just slightly. All right, it almost looks like maybe a circus tent. And it's just, instead of creating straight lines radiating from the center, we've created this just a very subtle change to create a little bit of illusion. They don't all have to be. So that's actually kind of cool as is, right? It's just kind of this neat little... So that is actually kind of like what festoon looks like, is sort of this orb with these radiating lines. But when we usually draw a festoon, we have a lot of tiny ones filling a space. But this is a bigger one, and we're using it as a reticula, which is really fun. Now we're going to add the perk. Perk is this beautiful tangle that has sort of these roadways we create, or I don't know, what would you call them? Like hallways, channels. We fill with orbs and kind of smush them together. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to use these beautiful sort of channels or sections to fill with orbs, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to start from the center, tiny little orbs, and then I'm going to kind of smush them into these channels, or each one sort of slightly falling behind the one I previously drew.
I want you to notice what she's doing. She's not drawing, the only full orb she drew was the first one, and the rest of them are almost three-sided, if you will. They don't have a beginning.
Right.
So maybe...
And then I'm just gonna gently, and some people like to put in all their orbs and then ink in the spaces. I'm gonna do it kind of as I go, break up the steps. All right, let's do this next one. Again, smushing them right into that space, turning your tile as you work, breathing. And these are orbs. I don't know if you've ever heard us talk about this before, but we rarely use the word circle because we kind of don't want to get hung up on them having to be perfect. We just want to sort of explore how we can create sort of these round organic shapes. Just focusing on that one line and then pausing and moving on to the next. It's like a beautiful process of extreme focus of where you are, and then letting go of that thing when you move on to the next thing. So now I'm getting to these ends where my orbs are kind of overflowing that pencil line, and that's okay. We kind of want to play with that fun illusion there. So be freeing when you get to the end there to go right over that pencil line. That's fine. I'm going to fill in just this last row, again, exactly the same way we started these, starting with the tiny one and then just smushing in one orb at a time. And you can kind of alter them depending on how, like this one I made kind of thinner so that I could fit 2 more. And then I'm just going to ink in the rest of these interstices, which is a word that means the spaces between, something like that. Just taking your time with this inking in because it really makes the orbs pop out, that process of adding the dark behind it. And it doesn't take much. The brown pen just like sinks into it. And I don't know if you noticed, but these spaces up at the top, I kind of created a more little like rounded, kind of inked it in by adding this sort of bridge, little rounded bridge. So
It's
yeah,
already got this great illusion of kind of folding in on itself.
right?
It's really neat.
We haven't even shaded it yet. So just going back to catch the ones I hadn't done yet. All right.
That's so pretty.
It is pretty, right?
It's a pretty
Round this one a
blob.
little bit.
Isn't that
What did you
bubble
call
blob?
it?
It's
It's
like a
not a blob.
It's like a bubble blob.
It's a blossom.
A bubble blossom.
It's a beautiful blossom. And with that, I am going to leave my festoon this way just for a little bit as Martha adds around it, and then we'll start, we'll go back to it and revisit it to shade it.
Thank you, Miss Molly. So I'm going to work with this beautiful rounded line.
Yeah, and it's kind of inconsistent, so it's
Yeah.
a little interesting. So it's always fun to play with like what you've created accidentally. It's almost like
And that's kind of the magic and the beauty of aura, which is what I'm gonna do right now. Aura is that great thing that you can do when you don't know what else to do, right? You know, you're like, okay, here's an
like-
interesting shape. I'm going to
it
just
almost like is like a time
aura around it and see what
Yeah.
happens next.
We do that a lot. But
Yeah.
it is pretty magical, and just that little bits of like visual space you create can
Mhm.
actually change your composition a lot. It's kind of crazy.
Absolutely. All right, so I am going to pick up my black pen now, black pen, and working in the inside here, meaning like towards the center of the tile and not over here yet, I'm going to aura this shape with a very, very, as far as I can handle, thin line in black, auraing around. I'm just traveling right along this line. Going slowly and deliberately. And as Molly was saying, you really don't have to use a lot of pressure on your pen. This paper is very absorbent. All right, so that's our first aura line. And now I'll complete it down here as well. And you see how even with just these simple strokes, I'm turning my tile so that my hand is always comfortable. So here I have, you know, these sort of valleys and peaks, and I'm going to play along with that prompt, if you will, and I'm going to draw some lines. And if you'd like to watch me first, and I'm going to draw lines coming out of all of the valleys. So every time we have a little divot here, I'm
And
going
it's subtle, but you can kind of find it.
yeah. So the thing I want to do with my lines is to give them some interest, and I'm going to do that by drawing a line like this in this valley. And then when I come to my next valley, I'm going to draw a longer line or just a line of a different length. And each time I come to a valley, I'm going to kind of alternate long and short. I understand it might seem a little strange, but work with me here. We're kind of building something to decorate this beautiful blossom, as Molly called it. I guess there's one more over here, a long one right here. All right, so now from here, you know what? I'm going to draw a line to connect where all of these end. And it's going to create a border, if you will.
Just like a subtle curve, right? Just
Yeah,
like
right. So I'm just going to create an interesting line, right? They're not perfectly straight. It's almost like connect the dots. So now we have this kind of undulating column, and each of these lines has created for us a space for us to put a fragment.
basically like a small
So,
grid,
like
right?
a
Yeah,
grid,
border,
yeah. So instead of filling the insides, we're going to actually build off of each one of these lines that we put in. And I'm going to use a stroke that is reminiscent of the tangle called bales. So we're sort of borrowing that stroke. And really what it is a seed shape.
Right, almost
Like
like a
that.
little grain of rice or
Yeah.
just a subtle curves that meet.
Yeah, so you're starting at one point on the top and ending at one point on the bottom. To me now they're looking a little bit like surfboards. There's a lot of surfboards going on in my house lately. And then just this first one over here. And then in these seed shapes that we've just drawn, I'm going to add just some orbs to decorate them. And instead of the way Molly did it, where she started small and worked big, I'm actually going to start in the middle, kind of with my largest orb there. And then kind of nestle them in till I get to the end.
It's amazing like how many times we can repeat the same idea in a different way to get completely different results. And sometimes even within the same tangle, it's that repetition that builds sort of this conversation within.
Yeah, and it's something that sort of, I don't know, it's resonant of what's going on over here. It's a little bit different. It's a similar stroke. And so I'm going to fill all of these little needly shapes. And I know there's that line in the middle, but here's where we talk about that faith in the process. You'll see, like Molly did, I'm just gently inking in the little spaces in between.
I actually don't mind that line so much, to be honest with you. It's kind of like
Well, let's see how it
structural.
goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's true. It's there.
Like a cat's eye.
These brown and black inks they play so nicely together, don't they?
Super complimentary. It's a nice palette, like it works well with the whites and the little graphite.
That's the word I was looking for.
It's probably why you actually see those colors a lot together in nature, you know? Animal furs are like combinations of browns and blacks.
And here's this last one here.
Yeah, it's just pretty starting to see these build on these structural pieces. And that is something we want to kind of get the message across with the Renaissance tiles and tangling in this process is there's so many layers that go down. And there's something to be said about all those layers as you're working and sort of trusting that process and working through and kind of chipping away at something bigger.
So I'm going to put my black pen down for a while and pick up my brown pen. As I talked about it earlier, we're going to do some auraing around these bales shapes. And I'm going to work in one direction and then back again. And you can watch me for a minute and perhaps you'll have your own rhythm that you develop. But basically, with the brown pen, I'm going to go in and I'm going to continue this aura just like I did with the black. Each seed will get an aura in brown.
Again, it's like aura and orbs. It's like just layering all these very simple strokes, allowing yourself to focus on these simple strokes. Just add an aura.
It's a real testimony to the fact that Zentangle really doesn't need to be complicated. It's really very simple, and it's endless combinations of really four different simple strokes. So I've done that brown aura once, and you guessed it, we're just going to keep going until these strokes touch. And I'm aiming to have that space between my auras relatively similar. It's not always going to be exact. And we're just going to keep going. So you'll see how some of them are already touching, and I'll kind of let those be and maybe just add a few more extra strokes where it's needed until they touch like that. We often sort of on purpose do things that are not symmetrical or not perfectly metered because it's that gentle humanness that is created when things aren't measured with a
Right.
ruler.
It's nice though.
Yeah, pretty great. All right, so you can see something kind of developing here. Maybe I'll add one more over here. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that.
And I'm going to put the brown pen down again. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I have to finish up down here.
I like those little ones there in the corner that sort of completes this shape, but it's
Yeah.
falling off the edge. That's nice.
I always think when I see a tangle that's hidden somewhere behind another tangle or goes off the edge, it's fun to kind of imagine what's lurking
Right?
on the other side.
Beautiful.
All right, so with my black pen again, I'm going to, you guessed it, draw an aura. Well, actually, what do you think? Should I fill in the 8 spaces first?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Okay.
kind of, you're kind of just filling that space with the black. So it's not quite an aura. It's kind of like an outline.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah. So maybe what, I'm seeing these little corners here, and I think what I'll do is add a little, we call it drama.
right?
What's life without a little drama? See where those little interstices little corners are left down here.
Yeah, and the black sort of next to the brown is nice because it just seems a little extreme and subtle at the same time, if that makes any sense.
It's subtly extreme.
Right. And you just sort of, those little triangles just appear, which is nice at the bottom
Yeah.
there.
Just little spaces left. And then fill in these top areas too. So here's where we get. And just take your time. Everyone has their own sort of pen stroke that gives their filling in its own little character.
Yeah, I love that detail when you kind of add a little bit to the top and it sort of gives an illusion of, yeah, that just little subtle bump.
Remember to take a nice deep breath.
Right?
So much focus. Taking your time and enjoying just the moment that you're giving yourself to fill in these beautiful little leftover spaces.
Right.
All right. So now I'm going to draw another aura line, and it would just further define this interesting border that we've created here. So I'm still working with my black pen and just a very, very fine line, just sort of framing this lovely border that we're building. Just a light touch on my pen.
Again, the aura is so strong and it's so cool because you would never guess to draw that specific line without any of the previous lines that had already gone down. So it's so sort of reactionary.
Right. So, all right, I have this fun little thing that maybe we can further embellish this beautiful blossom that's coming. It's really kind of looking like a trippy flower. I don't know. It's really neat.
Again, we were talking about blossoms.
Blossoms.
Yes.
Blossoms, flower.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a fun little
Old tangle.
old nonsensical kind of a
Very
line.
from
Yeah.
the beginning tangle.
What's it called?
Stir it up.
Stir it up. I'm going to write that down because
Stir it
it's
up.
really fun. Stir it up. Boom. And it lends itself wonderfully to a border, but certainly you can see filling in any kind of random space that might need filling. And you can watch me. I've got my brown pen here, and you can't think too hard about it. It's you just got to let the pen fly. But it's just this around and around and around and around and back and forth and up and down and squiggly. It's very
She's kind of
squiggly.
doing it in a little border, but it actually can be done in a whole space if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm drawing. I'm going back and forth, and it's very. I mean, I have my own rhythm of things that I'm doing here.
It's kind of lacy.
It's lacy and frilly, and just very much a textural thing. Some of it's loopy, some of it's not. I'm trying to keep within a certain height, if you will. And I have a very light touch on my pen. And then sort of just to contain it, I might do that aura again where this time I'm actually touching the tips of it
That's, I love that. All right, we're gonna let some of that ink settle in a little bit, and Molly's gonna come in and bring
Add
things
some
to
more,
light.
yeah.
Alrighty, so I am going to add a little bit of jelly roll to this composition before we start shading. So I'm using the jelly roll in my project pack. This happens to be a size 10. I actually love this bold jelly roll. It just kind of the ink really flows out of it. Sometimes with gel pens, before you get started, you might just sort of roll the pen around on a scrap piece of paper or on the back, just kind of make sure the ink is flowing. And I just want to kind of add a little detail to the edge of this. I guess we could call it fringe, right? It's kind of fringy.
It's a frilly fringe.
Yeah. And I'm going to just play with some simple dots that actually just kiss the edge of my fringe. Just a fun detail. The 10 is great for doing dots. When I'm playing with the jelly roll this way, I feel like if I hold my pen a little bit more upright, it actually sort of adds to the flow. And just breathing, and just almost as if these dots are just sewed on with like one little stitch. It's like back in the day when you'd see these beautiful laces. So bright on the tan paper. Not pressing too hard.
The jelly roll doesn't like that.
No, it actually doesn't. None of the pens do.
Yeah.
But that takes time, so give yourself a little bit of room for that exploring your pen pressure, because it takes sometimes a lot of our stresses come out on our pens, and little by little you'll loosen up on your grip and your pen pressure will change, but you just gotta take it on a little bit at a time, reminding yourself each time. Ooh, that's so pretty. Love that. And now this is an option here because there's always options, right? You may actually enjoy this sort of way that these look. It's a little bit different. I want to add my jelly roll right over it to add this sort of layering and a little bit of structure to it. So I'm going to go in and jelly roll right over each orb. And that black might be like slightly coming through, but almost in a way that's like part of the translucency of it, creating sort of these glass orbs or something like that. But you may leave yours plain. Either way is fine. Always options. Whenever we're instructing a class, what's great about Zentangle is you can always go off on your own at any point in time. Or maybe you try it this way first and then you go back and do the whole tile again in a variation.
Or even just reversing the black and the brown pens would give you a completely different
Right?
look to your tile.
Again, a nice gentle touch, getting as much ink as you can in each orb. So by just barely touching the paper, you just release that gel ink.
The black ink really kind of holds it in there as
Right?
well.
It's true. All right, so we're going to get ready for shading, but you certainly are going to want to make sure that all that gel ink is dried before we move on. All right, so I am going to shade this festooning perk. It's a festooning perk.
Oh, festooning perk.
And I'm going to start with my graphite pencil. I like to get my graphite pencil really sharp before I start because I think it gives me extra control to get right in where I want to get into. So what I'd like to do is actually just create a layer of graphite right around the edge of every single one of these orbs. And I'm just taking my time and breathing, going nice and slow.
You're doing every single orb?
Every single orb.
Okay, get
I know,
ready.
it's crazy.
Enjoy.
all about the process. Oh, you're gonna be so psyched though when you see what this looks like when you do that. So nice and slow, again with a nice sharp pencil. I'm still using the edge of my pencil, not quite, I'm not putting like it straight down. I'm using it right on the soft edge so I don't get any sharp sort of creases in my paper. I'm just softly putting a dark. I want to leave this aura unshaded because I think that's going to be a nice detail. So, all right. I know it takes a while to get all those done, but it'll be worth it. Trust me. Trust me. So I'm just going back and kind of revisiting a couple here. And the great thing about graphite, I always say this, is you can always go back and add more if it wasn't dark enough. So now I'm going to take my tortillon that I've been using for graphite, and I'm just going to softly go over each of those. I'm just going over it quick. It doesn't take much, just to soften sort of the stroke lines. This middle part, they're so tiny, it's different, but once they get out here, you want to leave the middle because we're going to play with that in a second. So just getting the graphite sort of into the paper's fibers. Kind of want to avoid anywhere there's pen because that's where the paper can get a little aggravated. Yes, paper gets aggravated too. Just take your time. Don't get caught up in any of the sort of left behind pencil lines. Everything starts to sort of come together at this point. We're slowly adding in these darker areas. We talked about that sort of dark and light, and sort of trying to make the dimension come out in these tangles. And orbs are just beautiful to kind of play with that idea with.
That, I don't even know if this is a word, but the orbness of them comes out even more when you add that.
Orbness.
When you start adding the dark and the light, there becomes other shapes to them, you know.
Right.
They're not just an egg shape or a
and
oval
just
shape.
Yeah, just by adding the dark, you start to see the highlights, right? So we're just playing with that to start off with. Now I'm going to tap into my fairy godmother ishness and use my magic wand. I always call my General's charcoal white a magic wand because I think it kind of is like that. It's my favorite tool. I know I say that a lot, but it is definitely.
That's my magic wand too. It's not just your
I
magic
know.
wand.
Well, this one's mine. All right, so we're going to go into these orbs and we are going to add I usually, again, like a sharp pencil, I use the side of the wand or the side of the pencil, and it's so nice and soft. There you can just see one of them. And I'm really just kind of almost doing that whole section that doesn't have graphite in it. And you can always go back and add more graphite around the white if you want to, but and I'm not going to go all the way in here because I'm going to probably add some graphite to that center part. So I'm going to go and I put this white down pretty heavy-handed with the white because I like it to really pop. These are so beautiful. Oh, I love that. Just look at the difference already.
They've come alive.
Right? You can wear away your charcoal pencil pretty fast, so you might want to keep a sharpener handy. For these white charcoal pencils, we recommend the All Art sharpener. I think you got one in the last project pack, if anyone has one, but any sort of sharpener you would use for colored pencils works well. Like I said, we use that one called an All Art sharpener, and it's looks like this. And it has just the right, I think you call it a bevel, to prevent it from breakage because they are a little bit more fragile. And like this evolution of everything we've put down is starting to sort of come together here.
With this new set of tools, if you will, I mean, I don't mean the pens and whatnot, although that certainly helps, but now you have this idea of approaching a tile. You could even take a tile that you've done a few months ago that you did in black ink and approach it in a different way and say, what if I did this tangle to tangle combination with black and brown
On a Renaissance tile,
and then
totally.
added that graphite, and then added the white charcoal, and then embellished with white jelly roll. Like, what would
Right.
happen to those tangles?
Take the ideas from an old tile and then redo it on a tan tile. Love that idea. That's awesome.
I mean, chances are you wouldn't do it exactly the same, so
Right.
it would be a whole new creation, and it would just be inspired from something that you had already done.
But it's a great way to get started. Like if you don't even, you're trying to figure out what to do. Love that idea. So when I'm working with my Renaissance, I often I go back and forth a lot creating my layers. So I know I've already put down some graphite, but now that I have the charcoal in, I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to go back to the graphite, and I really want to, this center part here, I want to make it look like it's really kind of digging in like sort of this drama.
Like
so
a
I'm gonna,
funnel.
yeah, right. So I'm gonna almost add a bunch of graphite right to this center point here, pretty dark. And then when I'm getting out, I'm gonna just, kind of have it go in between a little bit. Kind of radiating out.
It's adding yet another shade because
Right.
the graphite on top of the other white charcoal pencil is adding another shade of gray.
Yeah, and you can add maybe just by going over the edges here. And then back to my graphite tortillon. I didn't even use the white tortillon on that white charcoal because I just felt like it didn't really need it. I almost used the pencil itself. But if you want to just kind of invite it back in, you can. Nice and gentle. Don't want to overwork the paper, so just kind of. And then this one detail I like, some people don't like it, but I'm gonna just do this one more thing where I kind of go back over right up the middle with a white pencil. And it's subtle, but it kind of creates it's a little different. Kind of just one stroke right up the middle. So many layers here. Kind of ties it all together a little bit. That's awesome. I love it. Maybe a couple little darkness right at the edges here. So many subtle details you can add. Just a little bit of really dark edges right there. What do you think, Martha? Is that festooning perk or what?
It is actually awesome.
All right, up next, bales. Here we go.
All right. I can't even believe how gorgeous this is coming out so far.
I'm going to sharpen this white charcoal for you.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to have an assistant.
Scalpel.
I am going to start with the graphite pencil here, my little Zentangle pencil. And I'm going to start by adding some graphite just on the top and bottom edges of these little, I don't know, seeds, if you will.
Yeah, we keep referencing bales, although it
Yeah,
doesn't really look like anything like
I
bales, but
know.
it's the same shape
It's
we
the same
use, yeah.
stroke, yeah. And so you'll see I'm adding some graphite. I'm kind of staying away from that beautiful white jelly roll. I don't want to muck that up too much. But I'm going to add it to the top and bottom of these seeds. Again, I'm really being careful not to get any graphite in this, space right here that we created with our aura.
Yeah, and because it's a tiny space, you also don't want to graphite the whole thing. So you're trying to preserve some of that.
Yeah, I've got other work to do in here, so I'm just doing a little bit, and then I'm going to add some other stuff.
There is more work to be done.
It's another example or reason why we always like to start out drawing on a tile a little bigger than you think you might want to, because often we fill it in with something else, and you want to give yourself that room to add other layers of lines and
Details,
shading.
yeah.
These little pencils are perfect to kind of hold in your hand. Not the way you would if you were writing your name, but the perfect angle of
Right, to get that side of
that
the
side,
graphite.
so
the
you're
tip,
not
yeah.
denting your paper. This allows it to blend so much easier. Now, before I use my tortillon, I'm actually going to grab this beautiful rusty brown chalky pastel pencil that came in your pack.
I know, I actually love this
It's
pencil.
very sharp.
Oh yeah, I got that really sharp.
Yeah.
I like how it sort of brings this sort of antique feeling to it. It's
Yeah, so I'm going to then add another layer of color here, and I want you to see how I've left this center area with no pencil on it so far. And I'm almost using it a little bit overlapping on the graphite. One will merge into the other. In fact, I'll show you what I'm intending here, and then you can kind of work at your own pace. Because I have both dark and color, it's really doesn't matter which one you
I
use at
know.
this point.
You just don't want to use the one
You
that
just don't want to
for
use
all white.
for
Yeah.
white. So I'm gently sort of drawing it towards the center. I'm not really muddying it. I'm just inviting it into the paper, again, leaving that center area. And then with the white charcoal, I'm going to come into that space. Of course, this one's has a little bit of a funny shape, so I might want to.
That looks great. I love that. You get like a little sparkle.
Yeah. And the white is so vibrant. I think I like it unblended, but let's see how the rest of them come through, and we'll make our decision. So, and especially when you're making your own masterpiece, you might decide, well, I want more graphite here, or like Molly was doing, you go back and forth, you kind of see what it needs, you assess, and then decide what you want to do with it. And all these subtle layers, they're not meant to be noticed. They just are meant to add to this overall. When you look at this tile and you're like, oh, everything is.
I know, it's like
makes you
independently.
feel so
yeah,
nice.
they're not, but there's something about when they all come together. That's nice.
They all play a part, but in itself, none of them are remarkable, but put them all together, Don't forget these little ones down here in the corner, they're forgotten.
I know. I just love how this kind of is offset, sort of like falls off the edge like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, without having measured it, it probably does somewhere hit that sweet spot,
probably
right? That little
phi,
phi sweet spot,
Right?
which we talked about at length with the last project pack. It's that sort of je ne sais quoi. Why do I love this piece of art? It's because
Right.
it just resonates with me. I think the only thing I'm seeing right now is maybe just to add a little bit of, back with my graphite pencil, just a little,
Oh yeah, that's
this
a
is
nice
basically to,
detail.
just to actually bring out that empty space. So that's, sometimes we use shading in Zentangle to point out where there is no ink or shade or darkness. We use it to emphasize what isn't there. I'm just doing a fine, soft line right along that black edge. And with my tortillon, just sort of making sure it's softened. It doesn't necessarily have to be blended, just very light touch. And you see that kind of silly, nonsensical line. It's really just a texture. Again, as part of the composition, it works beautifully. Wow, Molly, what do you think?
I think it's beautiful.
Well, I don't know. Would it be fun if there was like another one coming off over here?
I like it. I think that's a
As
good
if
idea.
there was like another blossom
I think that could be cool.
growing right here.
Yeah. Edit.
What do you think?
Yeah, go for it.
All
I think
right.
we should do that.
Oh, look at that.
It looks awesome. I like
It's
that.
so
That's a great
adorable.
addition. Just a little
A
detail.
little bit of fun.
All right, well, Martha, I surely enjoyed tangling along with you today. And I think that was pretty fun.
Very fun. I can't wait to see all of these in the mosaic.
The festooning perks.
The festooning perks.
Yay. Have a
Thanks
great day.
Thanks for joining us.